Bar Italia was more than a cafe. It was a social centre. It was a meeting place. When you think that this was predominantly Italian, this quarter that we're sitting in now, this area, waiters used to do split shifts. So they start their shift at 11 or 12, finish at 3, spend 3 hours out and about, and then go back to do 6 till 11. So that period in the afternoon was an important part of where we're going to go. We go to Bar Italia, we'll have a coffee, we'll communicate. So you just come back from Italy. Did you see my mum? What did my mum say?
Wow.
49, the communications were really poor.
Yeah.
So it was all done by word of mouth. And so that's the way it worked. It was a social centre. And it was an important hub for the Italians in London.
Hi, I'm Mr. Stings and welcome to Family Business. And today we are here with Antonio at the world famous Bar Italia. And what a story we've got to share with you today. So Antonio, I'll start as I always do. Why did you choose to join and then expand the family business?
Well, I was very lucky. I left school at 16.
Yeah.
I was never forced to join the family business. It was a passion of mine. It's something I really wanted to do.
Okay.
My brother followed. And here we are today, 5 generations later.
I love that.
And 75 years on.
That is incredible. 75 years. That's aspirational for us. I mean, we started our business in a garden shed, and we always talked about. Imagine the kids and grandkids and great grandkids having the business and running it. You mentioned that you never felt like you were forced to be here and be a part of it. What, I suppose, compelled you? Is that the right word? What compelled you, or what made you really want to be a part of this?
Well, I think anybody that left school at 16 and had the opportunity of coming to the seedy world of Soho, with its intrigue, and Soho has this ability of pulling you in, and it is a little community. It was very, very different in the 80s, and I was obviously brought down by my father in the 70s.
Right.
And it was seedy. There was an edge to it, and it was intriguing, and I wanted to understand that.
How old were you? 16?
I was 16 when I joined in 82.
Right.
But my father used to put us in his Ford Zephyr, smoke a cigarette. Luigi and I, me and my brother, my sister Veronica was too young, and we used to arrive at work here in Frith Street, and we were both sick.
Because of the
cigarettes in the car, and we sat on the seat, all of us together on a bench, and we'd arrive here, and it was completely different to what you see today. Soho, it was full of sex shops. It was edgy. It did have its gangster elements, and where we're sitting now, right now, was what they call them spielers, which is where they played cards.
What, gambling?
This was a gambling den.
This up here?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just down the back there was the Maltese Social Club, where you'd go up these stairs and the Maltese used to congregate because...
Maltese gangsters?
So they gangsters or who ran the sex shop business, because that's what it predominantly was in the 70s. It was all sex shops, whereas now you have the cafes, but they ran the sex shop, so that was their meeting place. There was a lady that worked, a lady of the night, on the top floor, and she was there right until the 90s, and naturally she changed the, I couldn't say position, but she changed the way she operated because of her age, and it opened my eyes, and I would never regret a single minute here. So this was a gambler. That was the Maltese Social Club. There was a lady working upstairs, and downstairs where we are now, which is Little Italy restaurant where we're talking from, was Fordham's, and it was a betting shop.
Wow.
Betting shop played a massive part in Soho, because naturally money came easy to the guys that had sex shops. So gambling wasn't a problem. Everything that they earned, they used to come in and gamble. Yeah. And it was a strange kind of situation. Gambling, betting shops today are absolutely completely different to when they were when I remember them in the 70s.
But you were 16 at this point.
I'm 16.
You're coming to this type of environment.
16, absolutely. So I walked through, and the betting shop is a big whiteboard. There's a tannoy in the corner, and as I can see it, when I was 16, and I'm a lot older now, and there's a guy marking down as they're shouting out things through the tannoy. There was two gentlemen called Fred and Maury. They had a fruit stall outside Bar Italia,
Right.
and they were more in the betting shop than they were at the fruit stall. But the funny thing was, there was honour amongst these gangsters that if you wanted an apple or a pear or whatever fruit you fancied, they had a little jar there with their money, and it was always full up with 2p pieces, 1p pieces, 5p pieces.
People paid for it.
And people used to grab an apple and put 10p in while they were in the betting shop. So, you know, and they were in and out all day long looking at results. And it was a completely different situation to as you see Soho today. Every possible shop and entrance was a sex shop. Either ladies working or just spice.
So how did like your grandparents then? Was it your grandparents that made the shift from Covent Garden to this area?
Yeah.
How did that whole journey take place then?
Well, that was a great story because as I said, my grandparents came over in the 40s, and they opened a typical English greasy spoon cafe in Covent Garden to service all the workmen that were working in the fruit and veg.
Right.
Covent Garden was massive for fruit and veg when I was a little boy, and obviously my father was there, Nino. But they used to start work at 2 a.m, making big fry-ups for all the people that worked in the market. So Soho was very cosmopolitan, predominantly Italians, but multicultural.
Right.
And they saw an opportunity of bringing a coffee experience into the heart of Soho. And
no one was doing coffee at that time.
There was the Mocha Bar,
right?
But Bar Italia was second.
Right.
I believe it was second. It might have been first, but we were the first to have a Gudger coffee machine.
Right.
And the only way my grandparents bought a lease next door for Bar Italia for 21-year lease for £50 in 1949.
Could you imagine that?
And they borrowed the money from the Icemen. Now you probably say Icemen, what's that all about? In the 40s, late 40s and 40s, there was no such thing as refrigerators. It was all done by blocks of ice.
Okay.
So if you needed ice, keep things cool, that's the way it was done.
Well, a bloke with a block of ice would just be like...
So, exactly, this is how it all happened. There was a gentleman called Carlo Gatti, and he'd take a boat, a tug, up to a glacier in Norway. They'd cut up a glacier, right? They'd take it up the Thames, bring it into as far as they could get into Central, bring it up into Camden Town and put it in a sinkhole and cover it in straw. And every day they used to cut enough, exactly enough as they needed, which was possibly one block was as big as this table and as thick as that, and it weighed 100 weight. And these men used to take out what they needed to service all the restaurants and clubs and hotels in London.
Well, let me get this straight. So, a couple of geezers went to Norway on a tug, chopped up a glacier, brought it back to London, and then hid it underground.
Cut it all up, put it in Camden Town.
You know what? We've heard a lot of stories doing this. That is incredible.
Well, that's the way it is, and I think that there is a museum in Camden Town. It's the Ice Museum, which was run and owned by Carlo Gatti. And the Italians ran it. So if you needed a block of ice as big as this table on the 3rd floor, because your kitchen was on the 3rd floor, then they would bring it up for you, but they'd put it on their shoulder with ice dogs, so they'd pick it up. And naturally, they were big, strong, tough guys. And it was the Bergonzi family. The Bergonzi family used to distribute in central London. And you could only,
So it's one family that controlled it all?
Kind of, yeah. And it was done by horse and cart. So it wasn't, it's put in the back of a refrigerated motor. It was a horse and cart. So these big, tough guys used to do their rounds at 2 a.m, 3 a.m, 4 a.m. They were finished their round by 10:30, 11. And they were the first in the French pub, which is a notoriously original pub in the heart of Soho. They were the first in there to start drinking, and that's what they did.
That is amazing. Actually amazing. Yeah. That is incredible. So, these like characters and these stories were a part of your grandparents' generation. Is that right? And your parents' generation as well?
Well, okay, so my grandparents opened the cafe in 49, which was let's put it this way, it was a grand opening. When you go back to 1949, the first day that they opened the cafe, they had Bud Abbott and Lou Costello come over, which is in that book,
right,
and stand behind the Gadget coffee machine and pretend to make coffee,
right,
while my grandparents were on this side as customers receiving the coffee.
Right, right.
My grandparents bought them bicycles, and they were, because Bud Abbott and Lou Costello were big in their day, they were comics from America.
Right.
And they came over to unveil the first Gadget coffee machine in the cafe, the way it was done. And Harold Berens was here, who was another iconic person in 49.
Yeah. And
the funniest thing that I heard, which was crazy, and you wouldn't do it today, is that they had a competition. They had a baby Gadget coffee machine, and they did a competition that whoever drank the most coffee would be able to walk out would walk out with a coffee machine, which was crazy, really.
I bet they flew out.
Well,
they didn't walk.
A little old lady won it. It's great. No, she walked out under her arm and she walked off with it.
I love it.
So that was a competition, you know. I mean, imagine opening a bar these days. Whoever can drink the most will have a bottle, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh man, I love that.
Yeah.
And so I mean, just flicking through the story, you know, you had. I want to hear the Rocky Marciano story, because, you know, famous heavyweight champion boxer, and then, but even before that, there's this element of community, and your kind of grandparents created this hub, this kind of family away from your family, from all the Italians that were coming to London at the time, and it feels like, as I was reading through that way of bringing people together has continued. Is that?
No, I think you touched on something that was really important, and it's a really good question, because whilst Bar Italia was the first to serve good coffee to Italians, Bar Italia was more than a cafe. It was a social centre. It was a meeting place. When you think that this was predominantly Italian, this quarter that we're sitting in now, this area, waiters used to do split shifts, so they start their shift at 11 or 12, finish at 3, spend 3 hours out and about, and then go back to do 6 till 11. So that period in the afternoon was an important part of where we're going to go. We go to Bar Italia, we'll have a coffee, we'll communicate. So you just come back from Italy. Did you see my mum? What did my mum say?
Wow.
49, the communications were really poor.
Yeah.
So it was all done by word of mouth. Yes, she gave you a shirt, there's your shirt. And she said, thank you very much for what you sent over. And so that's the way it worked. It was a social centre. And it was an important hub for the Italians in London. And that's why it flourished, as well as serving good coffee. That's its predominant importance.
It's huge, isn't it? It's just huge. Like that place is.
I bet there's so many families. There's so many families in London, maybe even in the UK, that probably have a connection to this place specifically, and this place has probably done something for them and their grandparents, I suppose, and parents, and they don't even know it.
Well, that's true, because the cafe is notoriously open till 5 in the morning. My father, who thank God is still alive, and my mum, they're 87.
Wow.
My father, so we're 5 generations, of which 4 are still alive, so that's quite impressive.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It really is. But
Italians live forever.
Well, we try to.
It's good food, right?
We try to. I think it's important.
It's true.
It really is important. So my father had this idea that we realised that the cafe, being in the heart of Theatreland, was getting busier and busier and busier at night.
Yeah.
So it was a perfect opportunity for us to, especially my father Nino, to carry the business on until the last customer left, and that was his philosophy.
Okay.
We will not close. We're not a 9 to 5. We don't work 9 to 5. We don't have set hours. So what we'll do is, when the last customer wants to leave, we will close the shop.
So everyone's waiting, everyone's chilling out.
Yeah, everybody's chilling. So it's not, sorry, you've got to go now, we've got to get, There's none of that.
Yeah.
So the last customer left, close the door, clean the place and go. And it got later and later and later because you're in the heart of theatre land.
Right.
You know, everything closed, you know. But we realised that there was a market there for late night time economy.
Right.
So his philosophy paid off until one day we're there working and an inspector came in from Westminster City Council.
Right.
What are you doing? So my father obviously said, we're working. He said, no. He said, well, you can't do that. He said, you've got to get a licence to do what you're doing.
Right.
So he said, licence? He said, we've never had a licence to trade at night, you know, offering good food, coffee and toilets for people, which was very important. Anyway, so we had to apply for this night cafe licence, which allowed us to trade till 5 a.m.
Right.
And it was a success. We got it. I think we were the first in London. We got
Really?
it. Yeah. And it became, see, following on from the social centre, there was no night trains. The all-night underground didn't start till, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So people, I know it's crazy, but used to be out in clubs, had a few drinks, then come to us, coffee, panino, and then wait for the first train home. So that was the importance of it. Well, where else are you going to wait?
Yeah,
you stand at a rainy bus stop, come into Bar Italia, and we'll get the first train home.
Yeah, with the car.
And that was important as well. And that was thanks to my father, Nino, who had the idea of carrying on and now, as you can see, from our little trend, the whole of Soho now is a 24-hour business. It's a village of 24 hours, you know, from theatres coming out at 10:30. And then people carrying on eating and drinking. And where we're sitting now in Little Italy, we were lucky enough to obtain a 3 o'clock licence for us to sell alcohol.
Right.
And, you know, people come here to celebrate and have fun and not be ushered out at midnight because, the licence is finished. So we have that facility here, which is fantastic. And it works really well.
It's incredible, like shaping London.
It is,
exactly.
It's an important part of London.
Massive.
You know. And we're very proud that we run both businesses in unison because, you know, my brother's children are now in the business, my nephews, Anthony, Louis and Francesca. And as you've just seen, my daughter came up, she's doing a year. She said, what shall I do? Shall I do a year at uni? I said, no, do a year of life experience. Life experience, because what you'll learn working with me in Soho, you'll never learn anywhere else.
Yeah, it's true.
You'll see things that you've never seen before. You'll see people you've never seen before. So you've got to do the University of Life for a year.
Yeah.
So she's here with me now. So that's the way we perform. Now, as I said before, I was never forced into the family business, but I felt it was my duty and it was something I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And they're all the same, you know. However, we're at a position now where I did say that we're trying to open another little cafe very close to here, and it will be all hands on deck to get it open and running.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We had a conversation a couple of weeks ago about how when we first started, so making chili sauces in our garden shed, and we got a listing with, I think it was Asda or Sainsbury's, one of them, and we were still making all the sauces by hand. And the same thing, no one was safe. It's like, look, we need you to come over. You've got to pick chilies. You're going to be doing this. You're going to be doing that. But we have to get it done. We need your help, and the whole family just came together to make it work. And
well, I think that's where we're pretty similar. The Italians, and there's other ethnic groups that are really family oriented. And you touched upon health and food, and we realised getting around the table, being together, being united is really important. And for the success of the cafe, look, if I hadn't taken it on with my brother Luigi, because and my sister Veronica, the cafe might not be ours anymore.
Yeah,
it might have closed, and the iconic cafe might have closed. But I'm sure you're possibly the same. Is that I went to a very normal, comprehensive school. I was never privileged enough to go to private school.
Yeah, same.
And what I had was a lot of energy and a lot of ambition.
Yeah.
And those kind of things brought me to where we are today. Yeah. And naturally leaving school at 16. And then with my brother Lou and my father and the whole strength of it, we managed to buy bits of these properties in the heart of Soho. And I left school with nothing.
It's incredible.
I left school with
I love
nothing.
stories
Well, you're
like
the same. You know, you can do it. You can do it if you've got the drive and ambition. However, the nature of the business has changed, and most people are online doing it and making a lot of money online.
Yeah.
Something I don't understand.
Yeah.
My understanding of business was get stuck in and look and try and endeavour and do what you can.
Sorry, quick one. You know, like you were saying, like you had that ambition and that drive. I think it is like same as ours. Do you reckon that came from your parents, seeing them running this place and what they were doing?
Yeah, I guess it was, and you know, very like they said, the ambition ran off on me, and I had aspirations to buy and to do and to do things. And this is where I am today. I'm lucky enough to have a little portfolio of 8 flats above here, have this building and the cafe building. And that's from leaving school with nothing and just doing it.
I love that. So,
You know?
so
And it can be done if you really want it. However, I'm 59. I'm going to be 60 this year. The drive has left a little bit. I'm happy to pass it on to my children and my brother's children, who've now got to pick up the ball and run with it.
Yeah, my parents as well. Like we only discovered this properly about while doing these podcasts. Is like my dad was doing these things. He was a teacher. Then he would try and like do businesses in the evenings and stuff. And I always felt like a bit different. We're not gonna. I've had jobs and I just didn't feel right having a job. As soon as you start working for yourself, like this feels right. And it was, I think, like you were saying, your daughter wanted to go to uni. Try this, like learn life.
Yeah.
Like get stuff from there.
100%. That's how I learned. You know, you do get slightly streetwise. You learn a lot from being in the hub of a hustling, bustling, multicultural area where virtually anything goes, and you do pick up on it and you do enjoy it. And that is half the fun of coming to work, is on a sunny day in Soho. There is nowhere better than sitting outside here.
London
in the sun.
In the sun is the best place on earth.
And round here especially, because you know, people, the way they dress, the way they act, so what they do and what they don't do, it's just amazing. You never get bored of it.
No, it's incredible.
How is it working with your family?
Great, because we're a very united family. We don't hold grudges.
Yeah.
You know, situations are sorted out on a Sunday lunch with a glass of wine.
I love
Big
that.
Sunday
Go on,
lunch.
tell us about that, because I mean we always love this particular question around working with your family, and then when there's problems, how do you deal with those problems? Because it's family. You don't want to carry that on because it can affect your family bonds, and that's the most important thing. So tell us about this Sunday lunch.
Well, like I said,
idea.
we're all united in driving forward, so that's the main thing. The lucky thing is we all have a bit of space, so that while I worked under a manager when I first joined at 16, I had my own idea. He was older, but I had my ideas of how I wanted to see the business thrive and develop, and so did my brother. But having a 24-hour business means that everybody gets their own space. So you're not on top of each other, and it's not claustrophobic.
Yeah.
But Sunday lunch has always been an important part of our Italian culture. And now, we were just working out at Easter, there'll be 20 of us sitting around the table for Easter.
Will you do that here?
We do it at my brother's house.
Your brother's house.
Thank goodness his table's big enough for all of us. And we just have, we have...
And how many generations? 4 generations?
No, there'll be 5 now. Because my nephew and Yasmin have got a baby called Valentina. So there'll be 5 generations. My mother and father, 87, will be there.
Dad.
Yeah.
So there's you guys.
Yep. I've got my brother and sister, Lou and Veronica, Luigi and Veronica. And Luigi's got 3 children. Anthony, there's so many Anthony's in this. So if you get stuck, just ask for Anthony.
Just ask for Anthony.
My name's Antonio, but I broke with tradition. So you've got Anthony, Louis and Francesca. And I've got 3 children so I broke the tradition. Nina after my father, Nino, and that's as far as it went. I've got Santino, who's still at school, and Orlando, who's still at school.
Right.
All good footballers, which make me very proud. So
fantastic.
So you've got all those generations sitting around. We have a few traditions which are really important, and this isn't sexist, but it just so happens that the men are working, but all the ladies have a tradition of making a very important dish that we celebrate at Christmases and Easter, and they're called ravioli.
Yep.
And they're parcels of predominantly Parmesan cheese with a meat stock, and then put into a pasta casing, which are made twice a year, and that's for Christmas and for Easter. So they all get together, all the ladies of the family, and they have a fab day out. And I think when they're all done, they have a little drink and they enjoy themselves. And us men, along with the ladies, we have a special day in October where we make homemade wine.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. We've been doing it since 1969, and what we do is we import the grapes over from Italy, and we have this old-fashioned way of making it where we go into a trough and we use our feet to crush the grapes. Yeah, and then we crush all the grapes, and it's a lot of grapes. It's about 100 cases of red and about 40 cases of white, and so that is a whole day process. Not being sexist, but the guys are working outside and the ladies are making lunch, and then we all get together and we celebrate this family day, and we've been doing that since 1969.
I love that. That's
Yeah,
so good.
yeah, it is, and it's important to us.
I love that so much.
So if there's any issues or any problems during the week, Sunday,
Always.
it just gets resolved.
Always, yeah. It has to be. You know, that's the way we move forward. I mean, communication is the key to everything in a marriage, and we're in a partnership. So communication is the key.
So sorry to I was just going to add, like you talked about the 2 times a year when you make the ravioli. So my best friend's Italian, Ariano. Shout out to Ari from Salerno in Naples.
Salerno, yeah.
And so his mum. I remember when he first came to the UK, he didn't speak a word of English. I was like his first friend, and went to his house, and his mum and dad were there. And his mum asked him, does he eat meat? And I was like, look, I'm Punjabi, I eat everything. I mean, I'm vegan now, but at that point, I ate everything.
Right.
So she was very happy. And I remember the first time, I got fed by his mum. And I think she adopted me because I ate so much. And I was like, I love this food, it's delicious. And it meant so much to her. And I know you're talking about not being sexist, but it's a cultural thing.
It is.
And she took great pride in that. And the dad, Luigi used to go to work, come home, and it just worked in harmony. And then, like you said, the raviolis, they were delicious, like when she'd made them.
Well, the common denominator is food brings people together, doesn't it? Whatever food from wherever country, it's just getting around the table and being together.
And then you mentioned like cultures being similar. So we're Punjabi, and it is like that family orientated. And I think that's probably why Ari and me became so close, because our cultures were so similar. We had the same mindset, same work ethics. His dad had a restaurant, he had a restaurant, so there's a lot of similarities between what we were doing.
Really important.
Yeah, we connected.
Food is the gel that keeps us all together.
A load of my mates, they weren't really eating dinner together. Eating dinner on the table for me, for us growing up, was normal. Dinner on the dinner table, not in front of the telly.
No, it's so important.
Even now, my kids, we have dinner on the table every day. On a Saturday, if we're watching a film. Yeah. Some pizza on the sofa or whatever. But
so, are they allowed to have their mobile phones going?
No.
See, neither mine. No.
I don't even think that's a thing.
Yeah, it really is a thing. It really is. So, you have to have these rules. My brother didn't have that problem because mobile phones weren't that prolific when his children were young. But every youngster now wants their phone. I don't know. I don't need to use mine for work, which is a 24-hour business while I'm having my dinner with the family. But my son sometimes thinks it's important to be on, looking at his friends, So, but I make it very important that the phones go away just for the hour that we're together, or however long it takes.
Absolutely, yeah. For dinner, like this, how's your day been? What have you done?
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you something with regard to having a family business, and specifically on business itself. So your grandparents, when they first came here, did they have a business before back in Italy, or it was their first business when they got here?
No, there was extreme poverty.
Right. In Italy?
Where they were from.
Right.
Yeah.
It was the north of Italy,
Morfasso, which is a little town outside of Piacenza, which is near Milano, and that's where they were from. And no, there was severe poverty, and what happened was my nonna managed to get over here via Paris, and she had very, very fond memories of Paris. Obviously, you're talking about the 40s.
Yeah.
She used to solder tin cans in Paris, and she learned to speak French.
Right.
And she always loved croissants and coffee.
Right.
That was her passion when she was there.
Right.
And she, from soldering cans and picking up French, she got to London and obviously met up with her sweetheart, Lou, they all lived in a house near King's Cross, Swinton Street,
Right.
and there was loads of families living all together.
Yeah.
Which is, you get a bit of that these days as well,
Yeah,
But they were mindful about work, very interested in of moving forward and going forward. My nonnal, Lou Polledri, had to add an alien card,
Right.
which you were given when you got to this country.
Right.
And you had to go to Theobald's Road and have it stamped every week to make sure that you were living in the same
Right.
place, you hadn't been in trouble, and you were working. So that they had to. I mean, an alien's card is a strange word for something, So he had to do that. Then, what happened, and it's all illustrated in that little booklet, was when they got the Bar Italia open, my nonnal was, what would I say, rounded up, and all the Italians during the war had to that were in the West End and in England were taken away to a prison of war camp in the Isle of Man.
No way.
So they were in Douglas there, and depending on how dangerous they thought you were, so if you were a journalist or something to do with the media, you were classed as high risk.
Right.
So he wasn't classed as high risk, my nonnal, but he was taken away to the Isle of Man, and there was 5 columns. So there was Unken, Metropole, Douglas, and one other. And anyway, my nonna was in the palace, and look, the Italians may do, depending where you were. They were all artisans. They could all put their minds and hands together
Right.
to do anything. So they would cultivate the land and be self-sufficient in food while they were kept there during the war. And if you look in that booklet, which is very poignant, and I'll maybe just be able to show you this, where we're sitting now, here, that is a man up a ladder here, taking down Italian, because this was an Italian restaurant. They didn't want any hostilities to the Italians. So that the sign was taken down in case people were throwing stones and smashing windows or things. So that's what happened just here. And this was a famous Italian restaurant. So he was taken away. My nonna kept the cafe going and the business is going. And then he was returned. But he wasn't. He said that he was fairly treated. It wasn't. He didn't come back with any animosity or anger. It was just what it was, and he got on with it.
And I mean that, if anything, that's going to teach you a significant amount of resilience and self-sufficiency. And I mean, you couldn't imagine going for anything like that. But so how do you think all of that, if we specifically on the business, how do you think all of that impacted the way in which they built the business? And then what knowledge do you think they passed on to your dad, just from a business perspective, and then knowledge in terms of how to run and grow a business onto you? How do you think that all works out?
Well, okay, so my nonnal Lou and Katerina, his wife, only had one son, which is my father, Nino.
Right.
And he had a hard act to follow because, trying to run the cafe, which was a business that didn't close all night, juggle a family, it was particularly difficult for him until we came along. He also had an investment in a nightclub in very close to here. He had other business interests, but when he left school, although he looked after the cafe, they had a business near New Oxford Street called Intertours, which was a travel agent.
Right.
And he did, what was that travel when you brought tourists over to Italy? Anyway, they did package holidays.
Okay.
And they were one of the first. And
when was this, like in the 50s, 60s?
Yeah, well, probably, because my dad was born in 1936. So they used to bring English tourists over to Italy.
Okay.
And my mother, who is Scottish, had a foresight of leaving Scotland, which she didn't feel she wanted to do something else with her life. So she worked in hotels, met my father, and went over to Italy and greeted all the tourists and looked after them because they had about 5 different tourist sites where the tourists would go to.
Right.
My mum was industrious, and obviously left Scotland, but she learned to speak Italian.
Right.
And she got dark hair.
Right.
And so my mum could pass as Italian.
Right.
Yeah, so my father used to bring the tourists over. My mum used to look after them.
Right.
Whether it was skiing, Rimini, wherever, and she picked up her Italian.
And was it just them two, your mum and dad, or did they have a team around them?
They had a team around them.
Right.
But my mum and dad were the main players in the team. And there was a rumour that they were the first Intertours were the first travel agents to fly the England football team out.
Really?
Yeah, that's why I was told. Yeah, they were the first to. Yeah.
Wow, can you imagine that?
Yeah.
So what do you think I mean, maybe even subconsciously, what do you think you learned about business from your parents?
Well, my father used to bring us down, as I said to you earlier on, in the car. And we had this tradition of counting the fruit machine money when we were only little kids, and that's probably why I never got addicted to fruit machines, is because the boxes were left open, so you put the money in it, come down the bottom,
right,
and you take it out, put it back in. But that was an important part. And then with Bruno Bergonzi, we used to count the machine money. And then have a dinner after, which was in this restaurant next door, which was Bianchi's, which is a very famous Italian restaurant.
Yeah.
And Bianchi's, we'd knocked through, but Bianchi's used to stay open late. And as we were opposite Ronnie Scott's, there was a lady, a very famous maitre d' called Elena Salvoni. And she used to look after all the celebrities because upstairs here, people used to come and eat before they went to Ronnie's. And she always told me a story that Maria Callas, the famous opera singer, was going across the road to see Ella Fitzgerald sing. And naturally she went up, she was a diva with a long mink coat, fur coat. Yeah. And she got upstairs here and the Italian waiter went up to her and said, Madame, he said to her, can I please take your coat? And she turned around and said, no, you can't. She said, the last Italian restaurant I went to, I never got my coat. So that was that there. And no, it was what you did. It was work. I mean, I only got 1 O-level. So what did I do? By the way, I did a milk round and I did a paper round. Yeah. And I earned £2.25. I'm doing my pay £2 and 25p bonus if I got in every day.
Right.
And a £5 on a weekend, Saturday and Sunday with a milk round. So you just got stuck in. Yeah. You got stuck in. And I think, work ethic's really important. I always said to my children, you can't be lazy. You can't wait for something to happen. You've got to make it happen. Yeah. But, you touched on something before which was quite important. And the cafe is iconic. But there's certain things about the cafe that really are important. And if you look at the floor, once again, it's in here, which is an important, really important symbol because these floors were laid by people that came from Italy. Right. And that was laid in 1949 by my uncle Torino, who also did the flooring in the Groucho Club, which is the next street along. Which was called, in those days, was called Gennaro's. And every waiter and waitress either worked at Gennaro's, Povardis, or Sheiky's. And he could do this, and that obviously, it's been up there 75 years, and it was laid in situ, which meant it was laid not as tiles, it was laid and then it was polished by them. And the reason why I mentioned the Groucho Club is because the Groucho Club has a piece like that was laid of a sun with symbols of sun rays in the Groucho Club at the back, and when it was Gennaro's, and I was lucky enough to go in and see it because now it's been covered over. I don't know why. It's such a beautiful piece, right? But it's in there, so that he laid that also in the Groucho. Yeah, but they've covered it over now, so no one will get to see it. But ours is well worn and knackered, right? But that is pristine.
That is incredible.
Yeah. So obviously, the clock. Every time there's something on about Soho, you've got the they always pan to Bar Italia's clock. It's an important symbol. Everything that goes on in Soho, you get that clock.
Yeah.
You got the Gadget coffee machine, okay, which has been which we had for 60 years in there. Parts are really difficult to get now because Gadget no longer weren't trading in England, but now we've got a new Gadget which looks very retro, which is brilliant because the technology on it is fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, for those people that don't know, the building that is through there and that private dining, and you can't see it, is John Logie Baird lived above Bar Italia on the top floor flat and first demonstrated television in that room there without any wires, moving pictures. And he lived above the cafe. So the Bar Italia has, not only is it an important part of our culture and history and family, it's also an important building because it's where John Logie Baird first demonstrated TV, living in the top floor flat and demonstrating it down here without any moving pictures, without any wires.
It's just incredible.
And now,
so much history in one little place.
And Lenny Henry and Dawn French lived above there as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Go on, Lenny.
Yeah. He used to come down in the morning for his breakfast.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
And had to walk up 3 flights with his coffee and croissant and toast. Yeah. No, I've been very lucky. I've met so many lovely people, and you know, you asked me a question earlier, and we never touched upon it, but you asked me about Rocky Marciano and the importance of Rocky Marciano. Well, I said to you that my father had a share of a nightclub, and it was the kind of club where everybody was dressed with bow ties, smart, you know.
Yeah.
And it was important in the 60s, 70s, you know, to dress up to go out. And he befriended Rocky Marciano. Rocky Marciano went to his club and they got on well. And Rocky was staying in hotels, but didn't like the food that he was having in London.
Right.
So he wanted 2 specific types of food. And he wanted risotto, which is a northern Italian food, rice with mushrooms. And polenta, which is a peasant food. Both of them kind of peasanty, but that's what he wanted. Polenta is ground corn, stirred with and made into with a sauce of some kind, and it's a very family northern Italian dish, which is we all enjoy as well. So he wanted polenta and he wanted risotto, and he couldn't find what he wanted. So he was brought up to my nonna's house, and we were there as kids because he died in '69. I would have been 5 or 6, so we were all brought up to the house. Rocky was guest of honor, head, you know, world championship boxer, 49-0, no defeats. So it must have been a great thing to be sitting around the table with him. I was there, but I don't remember it.
That'd be like Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua going to Grandma's house.
Yeah.
And then we turn up. Imagine taking the boys and the girls to see. That would just.
Well, it was what it was. But so what happened was, naturally he ate as much as he wanted, and in fairness, he was smaller than me. I mean, he was 13.5 stone. He was 5'8" or something like that. So, you know, he wasn't a big heavyweight man, but he wanted to eat this food. He wanted some homemade wine, which we duly had. Yeah. So he had a couple of glasses, maybe 1 too many, and then went to sleep. He wanted to sleep, so he slept in the house.
He slept at your grandma's house.
And then the icing on the cake was that he brought a showreel over.
Okay.
A showreel of his fight. So he took us to a place called Thatch Barn, which is in Bournemouth, London. Right. And he put it was a cinema there, so he put the showreel on for us. Right. And my father was there, and a couple of friends, and he talked his way through the fight. This is what I did then. Wow. He was coming to me now. We're back, you know. And he took us and showed us the showreel. So that was, I believe, that was 1969, and unfortunately, he left the photo signed, which my sister's got, of him with his boxing gloves on and his shorts, in '69, and he died 5 months later. Oh my word! When he left us, he died in a plane crash, and subsequently, his wife Barbara sent us over that picture as a thank you to my father. And it's an iconic picture.
Yeah.
It's people always say to me, how did you get hold of that? Where did it come from? Tell me about it. And that's the story. It was sent by Barbara when he died as a thank you to my father. And it's been in the cafe since 1969. So it's been in there a number of years. It hasn't been moved or touched, but it only left the cafe once.
Right.
And that was for a film that was made in Shepperton Film Studios by a gentleman called Julian Temple, called Absolute Beginners.
Okay.
With Patsy Kinsey and a couple of other actors. Julian Temple asked if he replicated the whole of Soho in Shepperton Film Studios.
Right.
And Bar Italia was one of the shops that he replicated.
Amazing.
The only thing he didn't replicate was the poster. So he asked the family if he could use the poster to take it out. Well, it did go, and it was on set for 3 weeks while they were filming there. Luigi and I, who were teenagers, were asked to play in the cafe as a role that we normally do, which was amazing because we were earning so much money being on set, and the amount of work we had to do to make that kind of money in the cafe was just ridiculous. It
So
was
you got to be an actor.
Well, I loved it. You know, it was so easy. And every 10 minutes you've got a break, and then you have your lunch, and then all the things you don't do when you're running and getting paid well for it, you know. So it went missing, but it was insured for a lot of money, and it was like a front tooth missing in the cafe because people used to come
where's
around.
it gone?
Yeah, I had to put a little notice up there. You know, it's been used for a film called Absolute Beginners by Julian Temple. So so that's the whole story of the cafe.
Something that I feel is a bit of a common thread running through all of this, and it's something we talk about a lot now. Like, you know, we're doing what we want to do in terms of growing the business and building our community, and people have connected to our family story, to our products, and the way that we've come up. But I feel that whole sentiment that your grandparents started about building the community has continued, and being community focused and people focused is what's made your business a success. And also, like, these incredible stories that have come off the back of it with Rocco Marciano and the football. I mean, we haven't even talked about the football, but it seems like, I mean, it'd be great to get your take on this, but it seems like by focusing on building the community, because you actually care about them, you're not going out there to try and build a community, but you're just you're kind of being the hub for people, and you care about people. That's what's driven your success. Is that a fair statement, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think pride's something that we've got to touch on, because you've got to have an immense sense of pride to be involved in an iconic cafe, and naturally the restaurant, but that has much more heritage and family about it. This is a wonderful business and much harder work because you're dealing with a kitchen, and that's a cafe and sandwiches, and it's a lot easier. But I think it's the pride that you have. And whilst Soho was a centre for the Italian community, they've dispersed.
Yeah.
They're more in Bedford now.
Yeah.
And they've gone out central London.
Yeah.
So we could be the last bastion in this street, which was predominantly Italian, of Italians holding the fort in Soho.
Right.
Because naturally, so as we said, Soho's multicultural. You can eat any food in the whole world in Soho. Yeah. Whereas that wasn't the way it was before. It was French, it was Italian, and it was predominantly Italian, but Italians have integrated and dispersed. Yeah. So we are the last bits here.
So what would you say the future looks like then? What's your...
Well, things are changing. I can name you businesses that have been around as long as Bar Italia. You've got the Algerian coffee shop. You've got the French House, which is a notoriously fantastic drinking pub. You've got the Groucho Club, which was Gennaro's. You've got Maison Berthaud and Ronnie Scott's, which has been here 50 years, which is iconic. I mean, you know, those are the iconic places that are still left. And you asked me a question just now, and it's important because there is a landlord here. It was Paul Raymond's son-in-law, John James, and Paul Raymond was the biggest landlord in Soho for a long, long time.
Right.
Was a landlord when I was a kid,
Right.
and I remember Paul Raymond, and I always remember one thing about Paul Raymond, and he used to go around in a black Rolls Royce with a number plate PR11, Paul Raymond 11.
Right.
And he used to just get his chauffeur to drive him round and look at property.
Right.
And if he liked a property, or he would naturally he'd bid on it or buy it, or he didn't have to bid, he bought it. But he got out on a bid on the corner shop there, which is now a grocery shop, 24-hour grocery shop, was a butcher's, one of the best butchers in London, called Bifurcos. And we used to buy our meat there. It was really top quality. And I remember once seeing his black Rolls Royce arrive, and I saw a door open, and I saw a pair of lovely shoes, and then white socks.
Right.
White socks and a suit,
Right.
handmade suit. It must have been a fortune. But the white socks was a bit strange,
Yeah.
you know, and it was Paul Raymond.
Right.
And all he did was get out, and he looked up, and he looked down, he got back in his car,
Right.
and he bought the building.
Right.
That,
Wow.
that was it done.
That's it.
And it was a pair of white socks that gave it away. A man that's got so much class and taste, why bought a pair with a handmade suit? So, you know, okay, coming back to now, unfortunately, he died, and John James has taken over with Soho Estates. And I must be very fair to John James, who's a landlord, and landlords notoriously get a really bad press on
Yes.
how horrible they are. But he really encourages Soho to stay family-run or individual businesses.
Yeah.
And he could maximise his potential by letting all of his shops to chains and other things, but Soho would lose its character.
Yeah.
So fair play to him. He really has worked hard on keeping. I mean, I think that's one of his Scots, and he wants to keep and encourage.
Yeah.
And I say to all the people looking and listening here today, if they're important to you, these independent businesses or family businesses, you might have to travel a little bit further.
Yeah.
But do so, because when they're gone, they're gone. And everybody says afterwards, I wish I'd have done it, or what a shame. But it is a shame. But if you don't use them, you're going to lose them.
It's true.
And we're very
true.
lucky. All of the places I mentioned to you that people do travel for miles to be here. And the first port of call when they've gone on holiday, or they live up north, or they come from different places, they come to Bar Italia. And they come there because it's a place that hasn't changed for 75 years. It's where they met their girlfriend. It's where they're now who's her wife. They've had 3 children. They've introduced the children to coffee or drinks or something, and they've come to reminisce. And that's really important.
It's like coming back home, basically.
Absolutely. And nothing changes. If I go away from Soho for 10 days, I get back, there's a road closure, or the traffic's going the traffic's going the opposite way, or somewhere's closed and somewhere's open. But when you come back to a place that you're happy with, it is like home from home.
Yeah.
And the cafe is completely original. We've made some changes to conform, but it is what it is. And it will, I've had people offer me money to do Italian coffee producers to redo the cafe and put their coffee machine, give me free coffee. But we have to keep it original.
Yeah. So I suppose that kind of leads me on to, what would you say? Your business has been around for 5 generations now.
Yeah.
And you mentioned some landmark business brands or businesses in this area, like Ronnie Scott's and Groucho and all these other places. What would you say is the one thing that makes something last for generations and could possibly last for another 5 generations? What do you think is the common thread? Because it's something that we're interested in. We mentioned earlier, we're building a family business that we'd like to live on.
It's passion. It's passion about what you do.
Yeah.
You'll have good days and bad days, but it's a passion to want to carry on doing what you're doing and finding a fun side of it. If it's really hard work or really difficult and boring, and things will be difficult, but if it becomes stagnant or boring, then it's going to be difficult. But you're young enough and you've got the passion and you're going to drive forward. And hopefully the next generation of the Polledris will be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed for the restaurant, it 100% is a young man's game.
Yeah.
You know, your patience,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
drive, your being able to understand what trends are changing in food and what you've got to do. Because, you know, Soho's right on the button, you know, and you've got to be up to speed.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
So that, I suppose that leads me on to, you know, we're talking about, I suppose, legacy, multi-generational businesses. Over this period of time that you've run this business, 45 years, I think you were saying, what have been the lows and what have been the highs?
Like I said to you, there'll be lows and highs in every business, and every day's different. But I've been lucky enough, and the real highs for me was watching Italy win the World Cup twice, which was absolutely amazing. Whether I'll be around to see them do it again the way they're playing, I don't think so. But I had a really funny story because, as I said to you, this was Bianchi's. And in '82, when they won, TVs were really thick.
Right.
Really, really thick.
Right.
And everybody was in Bar Italia, 100 people standing there screaming and shouting.
In that place?
Oh, yeah, you're grabbed in like sardines to come and see the final. And we didn't have any air conditioning, we only had fans on the ceiling.
Yeah.
And the inside of the TV got condensation, it went off.
Oh, no.
Halfway through, they screamed, the customers, at me. I was behind the counter and they thought it was my fault. It wasn't my fault. The TV went down because there was too much heat.
Unbelievable.
So they screaming and swearing at me and everything. Anyway, I ran into Bianchi's restaurant, which was here. I got Lionel Richie's big TV, two of us. It took two of us to get it up on the plinth that we had there.
Right.
Switched it back on and everybody started laughing and joining in again. But I got the blame for that. I would have been hounded out of Soho if I hadn't found a solution. But the other one was when we won the World Cup for the second time, we had the restaurant. And we had 5,000 people outside here celebrating with the Italians. Not one bit of trouble, just came from everywhere to be in Bar Italia to celebrate with the Italians, right? So what did we do? Lou and I came up here, my sister Veronica, we opened the windows and we got all the pasta from the kitchen, you know, and we were throwing it out.
No way.
We were throwing it out like confetti. And it was landing on people's heads. And then we had a bit of rain, and then they were trotting it in. So the whole of the road became white with pasta, ground in pasta.
No
Throwing it out the window. Chris Evans was here, Aldo Zilli. Everybody came to celebrate with us. So I had, and you know, another really high point for me was when I was at school at 16. There was musicians and people that I was really into that I had no chance of ever meeting. But I've met everybody that I've ever wanted to meet in the cafe.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, for those that can remember, I met Suggs he's a good friend of mine now, Suggs from Madness.
He's a big Chelsea fan.
Very.
Yeah, he's a Chelsea boy.
Oh, he still comes in here. Lovely man. Adamant, well, now we're going back a few years, Kylie Minogue, Rupert Everett wrote one of his books here. And we've had Mick Jagger, David Bowie together, Mick Hucknall, Evander Holyfield sitting here after going to Ronnie Scott's. He was world champion at the time, came into the cafe on his own, no big entourage, and came here and just had a coffee in Bar Italia. It's in that book, and my brother recognised him and said, look, Evander, can we get a photo with you? We've been very lucky. I've met everybody that were my icons of my era in the cafe. But I suppose a low point was the day that Cafe Nero opposite opened their cafe across the road, which was Parmigiani's, an independent business, and I thought at the time, would it wipe us out?
Really?
You know, how would it be? But I realised after that the competition was probably better for encouraging people in. But that was probably one of my low points. I think another low point I had was when Westminster Council came down and took our tables and chairs away while customers were on it. Because customers were drinking coffee and there was a problem with the tables and chairs license. So they bagged every one of my tables and chairs and put a string around them, and we had to go to court for illegal street trading, which was really traumatic and stressful. And the customers here to revolt and show their their disdain at Westminster Council, sat on the pavement and had their coffee sitting.
No way! I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, they were bagged up. Imagine tables and chairs in a bag as evidence with a tie on them.
Unbelievable.
And we had our
Some job's worth, isn't it?
Well, we had our day in court, and the court case in front of a judge lasted 20 seconds.
Really?
Yeah, we got them back and they were delivered back. Yeah, so that was a low point. But you know, when I say that there's been, in my 45 years here, there's been too many high points and too many fabulous and amazing memories. You know, even today, just doing something like this makes the day change. And it's something to talk to about to the children tonight.
Just back to football quickly. When you were celebrating Ferran Pastor, I was crying in a pub in. But you said your kids play football and they're good.
Yeah.
Would they play for Italy or England?
They love sitting here with their Azzurri top on.
Really?
Yeah. Well, we're from England, so I can't say, oh yeah, we're definitely Italians on it. No, my children make up their own mind. When they're in here, they like to be Italian.
Yeah.
Naturally, when they're watching a football match, and there is something about watching the Azzurri when they're playing football. Is when they go along. The Italian national anthem's an amazing piece of music, and it does lift you.
Yeah.
And when you go across, and you see all those good-looking guys.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, when you see the English national
We've got Grealish.
Oh, we have.
Take Grealish.
Yeah, well, you know, so they can be the best of both, and you know, I encourage them to. My father never said you're only Italian, just be Italian. No, you know, I was very lucky enough also to have a relation called Jake Polledri, who played rugby for Italy, which made me very proud. You know, naturally, when you've got a relation, he's just retired through injury,
right?
But you do want him to win, so I was predominantly supporting Italy for that. Otherwise, I'd support.
It's funny you say that. So like, it's similar with us. We're born here. My parents born in Africa, actually, grandparents there, and then my great grandparents from India. But Pops, like my dad, he's a massive cricket fan. Like, he'll sit there for just days watching cricket, and he supports India. And then like we'll support England because like that's what we've been raised with.
I don't know about that. I would support India in the cricket. I've got like no
affiliation.
It's just because my dad loves India. I've grown up with India and Indian food.
Yeah,
but I suppose that's
English all day long. Like.
Yeah, it's just fascinating.
Well, I always said I was lucky enough to go to Sri Lanka for my 50th birthday.
Right.
And I loved it to death. I went to a place called, I think that's how you pronounce it. And I said when I'm lucky enough to retire, I would love to go back there to watch a cricket match, just sit in the ground, drink a beer, and have some Sri Lankan food. That to me would be paradise. I've already planned it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
It sounds amazing.
But here's the thing: you're a businessman. You're doing chili sauce. I love chili.
I'm doing chili crisps.
Are you?
You're doing crisps now,
yeah. Go. A bag of premium coffee for maybe a chili sauce and some crisps.
All day long. We love that.
Yeah?
We're massive coffee
We'll have a trade.
Yeah.
Oh, the coffee next time so smooth.
Thank you.
Seriously.
Thank you so much.
Well, no, I mean, the way that you've told your story and from where it begins, it just sounds. It's been the most like colourful.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most colourful stories we've heard. You know, when you talk from the gangsters to the sex shops to the world champion boxers, you know, the celebs, the food, the ups, the downs. It's just been. It's what a journey. What a story to hear. I feel privileged to be able to hear it.
For me, like that is a proper family story.
Yeah.
So many stories. I reckon we could sit here all day.
I love the way that you talk about the way that you're. You know, the way that you talk about your family is like they're our family. Like you're just naming their names. It's like it's who they are, and I love that because we're like that. You know, and I think having. There's something just magical about having that family business and having them involved. It's just, I don't know, it's just,
it was good.
I feel, you know, it makes me feel like proud to have a family business. It makes me feel, like you said, passionate about what we're doing and, you know, really, really do something big with it.
It really is. And, you know, I must also say a big shout out to everybody I haven't mentioned who also plays their part in making this family that can drive forward and run a business.
Yeah.
You know,
it's not alone. It's not just a family.
no,
You're right.
if there's people in the background.
Yes.
I mean, when my sister now is a full-time carer for mum and dad. Luigi's wife, Silvana, she's always there to help. So, you know, everybody, like I said, we're just a small cog in an expensive watch.
Yeah. Well, I've absolutely loved it. I hope you guys have loved this story as much as we have. And Antonio, thank you so much for your time, for your storytelling, and for just
telling us all this.
Telling us all this stories and filling us with passion as well.
Well, thank you for giving me the privilege. And for all your viewers and listeners, when I get a chance to retire, I'm going to write a book on my 45 years or hopefully 50 years in Soho and put a few more anecdotes and stories that I've been able to share with you.
I
and
love
pictures.
that. I can't wait to read it. I can't wait to read it.
It's what I want to do.
Brilliant.
Bar Italia.
Until the next one.
Good
Peace.
afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.